What's going on, everybody? You found Bottom Tier Collector. I'm your host, The Bearded One, bringing you bottom tier content from a bottom tier collector. Today, I got a bottom tier list video for you, a very spicy, juicy video you're going to have to strap in for. Metallica is dropping 72 Seasons sometime in mid-April, and I figured it would be appropriate to rank their discography in honor of their release of 72 Seasons. They've released 3 singles so far, Lux Eterna, If Darkness Had a Sun, and Screaming Suicide. And I'm not overly impressed with all of them, but it's still continuing with the themes that they set, that foundation they set in, let me see here, Hardwired To Selfdestruct, that's the name. And just continuing that sound, a return to basics of thrash metal, very fast paced. And one thing that sticks out though with these 3 singles from 72 Seasons, holy cow, Kirk Hammett, he woke up and got out of bed and decided to play guitar. I don't want to spoil the list. You know, this doesn't have a lot to do with the albums I like. You know, I can kind of get past Kirk Hammett. I've accepted Kirk Hammett for who he is, the guitar player he is. You know, not everybody can be Dave Mustaine. But holy cow, Kirk Hammett got out of bed to play some guitar for these 3 singles. And I'm really interested to see where Kirk Hammett goes in 72 Seasons. I think it's going to be a really great album from Metallica and another brick in the wall, to quote Pink Floyd. So let's get into it. Strap in, guys. Like I said, you're probably going to throw your remote at the TV or throw your phone across the wall. I have a very controversial opinion of Metallica, but it is what it is, guys. So at number 10, Reload is the worst Metallica album. And I don't completely hate this album. It's not utter trash. You know, Fuel's on there. Everybody knows Fuel. It's a very fun listen. Got that hard rocking breakdown in Fuel. And then I don't like the Memory Remains on Reload. I like the S&M album version of The Memory Remains, just the way it sounds live, and then the crowd chant at the end of The Memory Remains is a fantastic just rendition of the song. Then there's Unforgiven 2. I don't like the Unforgiven 2. Better Than You is another single off Reload. Maybe something for you to listen to. But overall, this is, you know, this is the era of short hair Metallica and them trying to keep up with the times, and it's just not a very memorable album. Next up at number 9, just a little better than Reload is, of course, I already said it, Load. And I put it at number 9 simply because King Nothing is one of my favorite Metallica songs of all time. It's got one of my favorite bass lines of all time. I also like Hero for a Day. Yes, it's whiny. It's not metal Metallica. We're still talking about rock, you know, hard rock radio Metallica. But Hero for a Day is a fun song. I like the melody in it. And then Until It Sleeps and Mama Said are 2 other singles off that album. Songs of note if you've never heard the album. But I don't really care for these 2 songs, and I don't really care for these albums. This is just Metallica realizing that heavy metal's getting their butts kicked by alternative rock and what was popular with my generation at the time. Yes, I am part of the generation that caused the short hair era of Metallica. I'm sorry, but you know, we loved alternative rock, and Metallica gave Load and Reload in response to that. Next up, at number 8, we got Metallica, or better known as the Black Album. I know, spicy take here. This is where somebody's going to throw the remote at the TV or throw their phone across the room. The Black Album is much beloved by a lot of people. I would garner to say that it's the highest selling heavy metal album of all time. This is the album that put Metallica into the stratosphere, and I get all that, but it's just not for me. You know, it's got Enter Sandman and Wherever I May Roam. If those 2 songs weren't on this album, it might be the worst album of all time for me. Not of all time, but for Metallica for me. But, you know, Sandman is just so overplayed these days. Wherever I May Roam, I don't hear it a lot. It's a good song, but it doesn't stand out compared to my other favorite Metallica songs. Then there's Sad But True. Don't care about Sad But True. There's The Unforgiven. Don't care about The Unforgiven. I just don't get into that song. And then there's Nothing Else Matters. I call that the crying song. That's where James Hetfield cries into a microphone. I'm just not into the Black Album. It's not that impressive to me. And then it's kind of in a weird spot where they're transitioning out of thrash metal and heavy metal into rock. And it's just that tweener album, and it's just kind of like a metal album that doesn't have the X factor you're expecting from Metallica. So next up at number 7, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. And really, this album, why it's at number 7, I think Hardwired, Atlas Rise, Moth into Flame, Spit Out the Bone, and I'll even put Lords of Summer, even though I don't like it as much as the other 4 singles. They're really good. They're some of the best songs Metallica's ever written, in my honest, true opinion. Spit Out the Bone and Hardwired are like a return to form. I can hear earlier 80s, that era of Metallica in these songs, and it's really the first true like return to form album that I think Metallica had. But why it's further down on the list, even though I love Moth into Flame, Hardwired, I love all these singles. It's just empty calories for the rest of the album. It's very bloated, and I don't feel like they removed a lot of songs from the track list when they were selecting what was going to be on the album. And it's just a slugfest. Yeah, Hardwired is just really long to listen to. I think it even got 2 sides. Even in today's day and age where like side A and side B aren't really a thing, the album's still got like 2 CD releases. It's just really, really long. And I think outside the singles, it doesn't stand out that much. At number 6, another rank that's going to make people just lose their minds, And Justice for All. I like Blackened. I like And Justice for All. I like Eye of the Beholder. One's a little worn out, but it's still a great song. And Harvester of Sorrow. Those are great songs, but excuse me. I did a Metallica challenge 7 or 8 years ago where I put all of their studio albums into a playlist, and I wanted to listen to the entire discography. This was about the time Death Magnetic had come out, I believe. And my challenge was to listen to nothing but Metallica, the entire discography, every track in order, like the history of Metallica in order, in one day. And I don't think I did it in one day. It's a lot of listening. I was at a job at the time where I wasn't being supervised very much, and we could just tuck away in a corner and work with some earbuds in. So it was very easy for me to do that whole shift to get about 8 hours of Metallica in. But I came to And Justice for All during this challenge, and just remember it being so long. And I don't know what the influence for that was, why they decided to write 6, 7, 8, 9 minute piece songs, which is nothing new for Metallica. They have 6, 7, 8, 9 minute pieces on a lot of their albums. But it just seems like every single song in And Justice for All is so long. And then not to mention Jason Newsted. There's a famous story about this album where they forgot the bass track, or it got accidentally deleted or something of that nature. So there's no bass guitar in this album, and whatever the truth of why there's no bass on that track, only Metallica knows why there was no bass on that track. But that kind of holds it back, in my opinion. Kind of just the end of an era, Metallica's winding down. This is their last great thrash album, and it's good. It's good. I like it, but it's not great. It's just so long, and I don't have the attention span for And Justice for All. At number 5, Kill 'Em All. Really, really great album. The Four Horsemen, Motor Breath, Anesthesia Pulling Teeth. I've got a lot of memories with Anesthesia Pulling Teeth. Being a bass player and being in bands, I love Cliff Burton and what he did for bass guitar. I even learned a couple lines of Anesthesia Pulling Teeth and was able to play it, without the tablature in front of me, at band practice and stuff. I'm not sure I could play it anymore, but, it was fun learning Anesthesia Pulling Teeth, the first couple of lines. And then Phantom Lord is a great song. No Remorse, great song. Seek and Destroy, Metal Militia, Am I Evil? Got Dave Mustaine before he was kicked out of the band on a lot of these tracks. And just great classic thrash metal. In my opinion, the only true full thrash album Metallica ever made. And they're included in the Big Four, I understand, with Anthrax, Slayer, and Megadeth. But honestly, I think the only true, real thrash album they ever made was Kill 'Em All. Next up, at number 4, Master of Puppets. Again, another hot take. Master of Puppets is like 95% of Metallica fans' number 1 album. And I know there's 2 albums in specific you haven't heard yet, so strap in. It's going to get juicy. It's going to get controversial, guys. But yeah, here at number 4, we got Master of the Puppets. Battery, great song, Master of Puppets. A little worn out, in my opinion. But still, I like Master of the Puppets. Welcome Home, Sanitarium. This is top 3 Metallica songs for me. Sanitarium. I love the intro Kirk or James wrote for, the intro of Welcome Home and that riff. I love the guitar tone of Sanitarium. I love how it kind of builds and gets heavier and heavier as the song goes along. Disposable Heroes, I love the lyrics in Disposable Heroes. I love the meaning of Disposable Heroes. It's lyrics that I think about sometimes, and a song I hold near and dear to my heart. And then there's Orion. One of my favorite instrumentals of all time is Orion. Great instrumental. Master of the Puppets, it's clear. If you've ever heard Master of the Puppets, it's clear why. This album is one of the greatest albums, most celebrated albums of all time for any band, from anybody. And number 3, you're going to hate me, guys. Death Magnetic. Yes, I'm putting it over Master of the Puppets. Yes, I'm putting it over Kill 'Em All. Yes, I'm putting it over And Justice for All. I loved Death Magnetic. Death Magnetic was where I got back into Metallica. Cyanide. Love that song. All Nightmare Long. One of my favorite Metallica songs. I was just listening to it the other day. I love All Nightmare Long. The Unforgiven 3, the only part of the Unforgiven series that I like at all. Got that beautiful piano intro, and then it gets thrashy and heavy. Once we are taken out of that piano intro, the Judas Kiss is an okay song. I like it. And then there's Suicide and Redemption, another instrumental. I like it. I like Death Magnetic. It's basically Saint Anger done the right way, I would guess. But at number 2 is Saint Anger, which 95% of Metallica fans consider the worst Metallica album, Saint Anger. I love it because I've got some sentimental reasons behind Saint Anger. Frantic, tick, 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 tock. I love that chorus. Saint Anger, the song, I thought it was so cool. They filmed that in one of the federal prisons or state prisons in California. That was a really cool backdrop. Invisible Kid, a song that I have close to my heart. It got me through some tough times in my life. Sweet Amber, another great song. And then there's Some Kind of Monster. Some Kind of Monster, I wish they'd have done more with. It's an 8-minute song, and it's kind of a slugfest. It kind of drones because the main riff of Some Kind of Monster feels like they're playing it over and over and over again for 8 minutes. And I would understand why somebody doesn't like that song. I wish they'd have done more with Some Kind of Monster, but I still love it. I love the riff, and I can listen to it drone on and on for 8 minutes. Saint Anger, came out when I was really discovering metal and really getting into heavy metal and what it had to offer. I was coming out of rock music. I was getting kind of the mid 2000s is where I'm starting to get dissatisfied with hard rock radio. I still liked the handful of bands I'd always rode with: Linkin Park, POD, System of a Down. But there were a lot of other bands I was getting unsatisfied with that I just felt were changing their sound. You know, they had the one hard rocking debut album like Trapped, not Three Doors Down so much. They weren't hard rocking, but they got really soft. Chevelle got really soft in my opinion. 3 Days Grace, really soft. And there's just a lot of bands that really popped during my middle school years. Just felt like they were changing. Disturbed. I didn't really get into Disturbed by this time. And Saint Anger was there. There's been return to form as far as Metallica's doing away with hard rock radio. They're getting into being heavy again. And another reason why I love this album is I saw the bonus features, the circle, the circle of friends I had around this time, 2003, 2004, 2005. We were really big into this album, and I saw the bonus feature DVD where they all hated each other. They were sick of being in Metallica, but for some reason they won't let the band go. Obviously, it makes a lot of money. Metallica makes them so much money; it's their livelihood, and so they went to therapy, and we just saw how they hated each other, and they let all that aggression out into the album, and that was a time where I'm starting to get angry at the world. It's kind of the start of that period of time for me, where I'm just starting to question a lot of things in my life. And Saint Anger, I just felt like that album, I was going through it with them. What I was going through in my life, I felt like I was going through it with Metallica. And so I just always hold Saint Anger in a special place in my heart. I know it's got the popcorn microwave snare drum sounds. I know they stripped all the production, but I think that's part of the magic, how rough Saint Anger is. It's just part of the magic of the album. It's just all their anger, all their bad problems, everything Metallica and the members are going through. It's just stuffed into that album, and I've always loved Saint Anger for that. And it is what it is as far as where I put it on the list. And the number one, you haven't heard it yet, so obviously number one is Ride the Lightning. I think it's the most complete album Metallica ever wrote. Cliff Burton last time actually no, Cliff Burton is on Master of Puppets, but I think it's Cliff Burton in his prime. It's not on the album, but there's a video of Cliff Burton live doing this super fast finger picking version of Ride the Lightning, and that was where, as a bass player, I was like, just the light bulb went off in my head. All the great bass players play with their fingers. It doesn't matter the genre, because I got Cliff Burton right here in front of me just zipping through his notes with his fingers, and I never, we could go through all the greatest bass players of all time, and I think the people at the very top, your top 5, your top 10 bass players of all time, they all play with their fingers, no matter the style, and Cliff Burton being one of them. Fight Fire with Fire, great intro, great chorus. I really liked the lyrics for that one. For Whom the Bells Toll, I consider it one of the greatest songs of all time, one of the heaviest metal songs of all time. This take on this song, Fade to Black, is my favorite Metallica song of all time. I think it's Kirk Hammett's masterpiece. Kirk Hammett, take Kirk Hammett for what he is. He's not the greatest guitar player of all time. He's no Al Di Meola. He's no Dave Mustaine. He's no Steve Vai. But, Kirk Hammett's better than me, and he's still a legendary guitar player to be respected. And Fade to Black cements him as an all-time guitar great. I love that song. And then James Hetfield laying a very beautiful acoustic rhythm part over Fade to Black. It just fantastic song. And then there's Call to Cthulhu, their greatest instrumental of all time. Love how rough it sounds. Love the distortion overtone of that sound. And yeah, Ride the Lightning, just fantastic. Love the album art with the electric chair. Reminds me of Lobo in the chair. Alan Grant must have been a Ride the Lightning fan, you know, to put out that book. You know, got ties to Lobo. Gotta put Lobo into a video somewhere. Yeah, Ride the Lightning, one of the greatest albums of all time, in my opinion. So yeah, hot take list. I understand. Obviously, no one disagrees with Load and Reload being at the bottom of my list. Short-haired, hard rock, Metallica, and I think the middle of the list is where everybody's going to have an issue. But I just think a lot of these albums are either super overplayed or they're just not to my style. You know, none of these albums suck. You know, I pointed out several songs I liked on Load and Reload, and I genuinely like them. But just a lot of these albums in the middle of the list for me are empty calories. You know, once you get past the singles, they're not really that good. And then, you know, it's just very generic. It doesn't stand out. It's not Metallica doing what Metallica does best, which is what they're doing now, which is what 72 Seasons sounds like so far with these 3 singles. I'm very excited for 72 Seasons. And, you know, I think the top 4 albums are placed in the order they are, just more out of sentimentality than me trying to rank the best album. I think if I was to rank the best albums and not more what I think are my favorite Metallica albums, I would probably have Master of the Puppets at number 1. I think it's one of the most complete metal albums of all time. The production is incredible. The lyrics are just on point and deep and thoughtful and provoking. The music, it's just the band at the top of their game. But, you know, when I'm going to, you know, I've ranked this according to my favorite Metallica albums, my favorite to my least favorite. So I have to be true to myself. And I do regard Death Magnetic, Saint Anger, and Ride the Lightning that high. Very, very, very hot take. Tell me what you think of my list. I'm pretty sure somebody's gotten triggered by this list, which is understandable. I've got some very controversial opinions on Metallica. Don't really want to get into it. Don't really want to rip Metallica. They're still one of the greatest bands of all time, and even I can't deny that. Put it in the comments if you agree, disagree. I'd love to talk Metallica in the comments section of this video. I'm looking forward to 72 Seasons, and you know, my area of the country, Huntsville, Alabama, just opened up this huge Orion amphitheater, they call it. And I'm hoping we can get Metallica on the 72 Seasons down to Huntsville. And I can rock out to them and finally see them live. Never seen them live. And that's something I hope to check off my bucket list in the future. Until next time, guys. And as always, thank you for liking, subscribing, and commenting. It's much appreciated.